Now, today, if I look slightly excited, it is because a little ray of sunshine has actually broken through in our political leadership. A little bit of sanity is returning to political leadership. Now, I was critical at times of Galdys Berijiklian, particularly in the first round of all of this, when she wanted to keep the kids out of school and took a long time to safeten things up. But now, despite the fact that the extreme majority of people who come in from overseas go into a hotel quarantine system by their thousands, and it works, and case numbers are dropping by the day to almost nothing in New South Wales, the Premier is now saying what we have said for months. You've got to live with this damn thing, not hide in a hole until someone in a lab can come up with the cure.
Keep the virus spread low, because that means we can keep the economic activity going. We can keep pushing the boundaries and what we can do in terms of jobs and economic growth, which is something we're absolutely focused on, because we don't want to see more people lose jobs.
Hallelujah, and happy birthday, Premier. She's hit a big number. Congratulations. Sanity from the most populous state in the country. Understanding that we've got to get on top of it, you've got to contact trace, you've got to socially distance, all of those rules. But the idea that at the first sign of a cough, everyone goes into lockdown, it's not going to happen in New South Wales. Good thing to hear. And the Sanity now moves to South Australia. I've been very critical of the Liberal Premier, Stephen Marshall, who thought that he would be able to play the border games for a very long period of time. Even when there were no cases, he was still doing daily press conferences announcing how his situation room to deal with coronavirus was getting extra millions spent on it. Well, now that cases are where they are, the borders are going to come down. The obvious exception, Victoria.
But it is now time, because of the reduced risk in New South Wales, for us to open up those borders.
Now, what about in the Northern Territory, where if coronavirus takes hold in remote Indigenous communities, it would be devastating. It would have the same effect as, sadly, it has amongst our older populations, especially those in nursing homes. So Michael Gunner, while he played the COVID card to win re-election, he's not holding on to that card for any longer than he should. He too brings down the borders because it's time for the country to get back to work.
My advice to my fellow First Ministers through National Cabinet is our hotspots policy works. It's allowed us to stay the safest and the best.
Labor man, Liberal man, other Liberal Premier in New South Wales, Sanity starting to break through. And then, of course, we get to the puppet Premier, the pointless Premier that is otherwise known as Palaszczuk, the Premier in name only, because honestly it is the health bureaucrats that are pulling the strings and the focus groups. But again, she can't deny reality. The reality we have told you for weeks on this show, that in regional New South Wales the virus is non-existent. It has been non-existent for weeks and months in most areas. So the border bubble will get an extra 5 councils added to it, another 100,000 people who will be able to get medical treatment, like the woman who was unable to get the medical treatment, denied because of the hysteria of the Premier, who of course had to go to Sydney and ended up losing one of her twins. Well, that won't be the case anymore. Good decision from the Premier, but of course it's just a recognition of reality.
I can advise that from 1 a.m. on the 1st of October, the following shires will be added to the border zone. They are the Byron Shire, Ballina, the City of Lismore, Richmond Valley, which involves Casino and Evans Head, and Glen Innes. I think this is a great effort to consider how we can make our border zones more effective.
We've checked with New South Wales Health. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of other councils that have been virus-free. They should be added to the list. But we all know the reason why. She's going to drag her feet and try to pretend it's all about borders. Even though she's still tweeting about Queensland jobs. Remember, in the last month, the Queensland government only created 179 new full-time jobs. You can't hide from reality. In a place like the Northern Territory, with the most vulnerable population in the country, they're fine. South Australia, they're fine. It's going to hit you, and the reality is not just the electoral one that's coming your way in a few weeks, but the reality of the virus means the health definitions and the health defence you have had for some of these stupid policies, it doesn't exist anymore. As for the Prime Minister, he told my mate Chris Kenny a bit earlier today, finally, good, thank you.
I welcome the changes that have been made with Queensland. I look forward to more in the future as we further open up Australia.